So we're going to rely on our amazing grains, and we'll put that right in here, and pretty sure that we have a pretty good chance at Gomez in here, because this is where he's lived his whole life, other than last year when he kind of moved when that other Big Ten was in here. So I didn't say anything at the time, but there's another one of the deer that we'll be probably targeting, what we call Gomez, that right here too. And I just wasn't sure if we were going to hunt Gomez this year. He's one of those that you kind of like to let go to 6. They do that, 13 to 15% jump. That's when you want to hunt them. All right, we're over at this is a brand new farm we just got this year. So we got food plots in it already. We got corn and beans and our pro brassicas and everything else. So we're just working on our amazing grains fields right now. And there's a couple left on here, but there's one right down on this edge over here that it was a nice a nice field to be in there, but it's really narrow, and you can see it's all kind of grown up in cedars. And I think they used it as a food plot in the past, but it's getting really narrow. And anytime you got something really narrow, you get the roots from the trees on both sides going into the middle, and you're basically left with a little strip down the middle of anything that'll even grow. So wasn't sure what piece of equipment to bring over here, if I should bring the saws or what, but I know the mulch, I can't really remember how. Like I said, we just got the place. I haven't been back there since the winter time. But I'm pretty sure the cedar trees were all pretty small, that we could, at least cut them off with that, if nothing else, and get the stumps out of there. And then it brought the grapple over there, that if there's a bunch of, if we just want to cut them down, we just pick them up and put them off to the side. So we're going to clean that thing up. And then got a little bit more Vail work to do on a couple of driveways and some roads. I got to cut some stuff back, but just kind of finishing up, getting towards the end of the season here. So about put the Vail stuff to work again here, and that'll probably be it until we get to, time if we need to saw stuff down or any big tree stuff. But we're just a couple weeks away from hunting season, so we're excited to get some of these food plots done and get on the road. So let's hop in and get back there and take a look at it. Like I said, I haven't even been back there since January or February, I don't think. So we'll just kind of take a look and see what's in there. I don't think we ever sprayed it or anything else. So it's probably just a bunch of weeds and stuff in there, but we can chop them down with this too. Cleared out a spot on the east side over there, because you got mostly predominantly west wind here for a blind, and we got some spots down here for a tree stand too. So we're just taking some of the brush that we cut, and I'm having Donnie grab it with the grapple and pile up on both sides where that blind is. There's a couple of little spots like where I drove in and stuff to block that off from deer. We don't want them coming in and out right by the blind. So I'm gonna make a trail coming right down the edge of this. There's one kind of going along the edge of this, down and out along the big hardwood spot down there. So I'm just gonna cut a lane. I don't want them to come right out and look at that blind, so I'll do it at an angle and stuff, so when they're coming out, they're looking past it. But I want them right when they pop up to the field, if they give them a nice easy lane through this, and they pop up, they'll be right in front of that blind. So I was waiting for Donnie to clear out some of the debris over there and some of the brush, and then I'll just clean up the edge a little bit here and make the trail down there for them to walk out on, and we should be wrapped up here, other than planting it, of course. was gonna take more off of that side, you know, because I figured to get where a tree stands in there, but there's such a good, there's such a good spot down there for a blind, and I thought these might all just be bur oaks that were just, you know, coming up naturally like we have at some of our other farms, but they're all white oaks that he planted, so I was like, I'd like to maybe keep those, and they're full of acorns already, so it's like, let's keep those. It makes a good, I made a trail back behind this with the mulcher, so you could even take your e-bikes and park up there and just bike right in and pull in. So we blocked it up on the other side. So I did do both sides down at the bottom. And so what we'll probably do is do two different mixes, like maybe do wheat, you know, amazing grains on the far side, and then put the, you know, the right in front of the blind. We'll stop that and we'll put a Pro Brassicas or Perfect 10 up here or something. But we did make it quite a bit wider up here on the top. Just give us a little bit more food in here, make it a little bit bigger, last a little longer, and not so many roots coming out. So, like I said, it's a brand new farm. We don't really know exactly, you know, how deer move on here yet and all that kind of stuff, but we'll figure it out. By the end of this hunting season, we'll have it pretty well figured out. But I know there's a good spot. It's right in the middle of the timber. You know, it's a good spot. They got a creek bottom going this way and a creek bottom going up that way. So I'm pretty sure this will have a lot of deer in it. So I figure we better do a little bit of work on it now. We'll get this fertilized, limed, planted, everything right now. We'll get a redneck up at the point down there. I've, you know, cleared out a spot for it, and get some cameras out here and see what we got. But hopefully there'll be a big one on this farm. Just not sure. It's like, you know, check the cameras and it's like Christmas morning. Every day you get to open presents every day and see what you got in there. So I'm just gonna take a little bit out there and one more, a little bit on that corner right there, and then we'll head out and we'll go look and see how the food plots are doing on the other side that we put in already. Well, it's gonna be fun to see what shows up over on that new farm. You know, it's always, like I said, Christmas morning when you get a new farm and you start getting food plots in it and get cameras out and see what shows up. But we just left that farm, coming back over to one of our original food plots that we did some work on, put the pond in and everything earlier episodes. Let's go take a look and see if this pond is starting to fill up yet. Well, the frogs found it, which is nice. We can see all the deer too. So it's filling up. It'll probably be next spring or whatever before it gets filled up to where we want it to, but that's fine, you know, because it's pretty steep around all that edge. They'll be coming down right here to drink and coming back up right in front of the blind. So I'm pretty happy with this. We just came back and looking at this field and stuff. It's, you know, it's still got a little bit of the cockleburs in here and stuff. You would have, you know, when we planted it, it sat in the dust for a couple of weeks before it rained on it. So you started getting some of the cockleburs and buttonweed stuff in there. But overall, it looks pretty decent out there. But the only problem is now it's just 100 degrees again this whole week with no rain for the next 10 days. You can just see some of these leaves are starting to turn yellow and stuff on like this, the rape, and on the rape seed, this is turnip seed, starting to die. You turn yellow from this heat. And so you really would have been nice to be, you know, cool and wet here the last part of the season, but that's not going to happen. But I think hopefully it should pull through. The reason I keep coming back to this field and checking it, you know, obviously we did an earlier series on this, you know, building this pond and everything for this field. And, you know, I didn't say anything at the time, but there's another one of the deer that we'll be probably targeting, what we call Gomez, that's right here too. And, you know, we've been watching him for several years now. And we had really the 6-year-old that Tiffany was hunting here all the time last year. And that's kind of really what, you know, encouraged us to, hey, we got to do something here to pin these in or make a little bit of a pinch point here, because Tiffany hunted this other 6-year-old 10 like 20 times, and he was out every single night, and she was just waiting for that perfect shot, a 30 or 40, because he was always here. And just so many times she'd sit there and he'd come out over there, she'd sit over there and he'd come out over here, and a number of times out in the cut corn out there that he'd come in and just come into like 40 and she's getting ready to shoot, and he'd run and chase another doe off. And it's like, hey, we need to get something in here that when the deer comes out you want to hunt, that you can get a shot at him, because she hunted that deer for so many days and then laid off and went over to hunt a different one. And then he disappeared and never came back again. And we found him dead. And he was like 176 inch 10 point. But the deer that's why we really wanted to hunt that deer, was to move him out of here, because Gomez is a buck that's basically lived right here in this bay. And then last year when he, was 4 years old and he was kind of wanting to be, probably being to be a breeder, that Big 10 was in here just kind of running this place. So he moved over one bay, he moved over there, and then we lost him a lot. I mean, not very many pictures at all until late season. Then he was back here. So that was the reason where, hey, Gomez is kind of disappearing, not as regular as he was. Let's get rid of that let's take that 6-year-old out. And I just wasn't sure if we were going to hunt Gomez this year. He's one of those that you'd kind of like to let go to 6. But like I always said, if they do that, 13 to 15% jump, that's when you want to hunt them. That's when you should be on them, no matter if they're 5 or if they're 8. That's when you want them, because normally the next year they'll either go backward or sideways. They normally never get that big again. And Gomez was like a 6x5 his whole life. Basically, now this year he went to a 7x7. Actually has a couple little ones on the end too, so he's like a 7x8 or an 8x8. And he probably went up at least 20 inches. And so those are the years when they make those big jumps like that, that you're like, you better take them, because next year you go right back to a 6x5, and you obviously be getting heavy, and he'd still be big frame, but he may never put those points on again, because we've seen it 100 times that you let him go. So he's one that was originally going to, and now that he filled out and he's kind of, done growing, you start looking at him, you're like, ooh, he could be a 190 inch deer, and he made a pretty big jump. He was probably, mid to high 60s last year. So that's a pretty good sized jump, and he may never do that again. So this might be the time to take him. So that's really why we've been paying attention to this. Plus there's some other management deer that we need to take out of here too. There's a big 8 that we need to take out of here, because there's another big 6x6 with splits coming up. That's either like 4 or 5. That's just here once in a while. We just had some pictures of them in here a couple days ago, but it's just very sparingly. So I think once you get rid of those, a couple of those older bucks that are above him, he might just move right in too. So that's, a lot of our strategy is not just, what deer to hunt, it's which ones are in the pipeline, and, what deer you got to clear out to let them be the king of that spot, So that's what we've been doing here all along. We shoot a lot of, some of our big deer right here, but then we shoot a lot of our management deer here too, because deer seem to just love this spot. This bay that goes back into the timber with our big fields out here, and it's kind of low that you can't see it from any roads. Now we got a pond in here, and then we're going to be putting our Amazing Grains field in here, so we'll have Pro Brassica mix going right into our Amazing Grains, right into our corn, and this is kind of where they want to be. So now that I've kind of rethinking that on Gomez, we're going to introduce you to him. We got tons of pictures of him. We haven't come out and looked for any footage of him, which we may try tonight or tomorrow, but it's so hot out, it's like miserable 100 degrees. So I don't know if anyone wants to sit in that redneck to try to get any footage of him, but so at least on the next episode it'll be, hopefully we'll have some footage of Gomez too to show you. And we have another buck too that I'm kind of sitting on the fence. Same thing as Gomez on another farm, and we'll probably be bringing that one to you as well, because he may be kind of, once he finished out, figured that's one that we may put back on the table as a 5-year-old as well, because he did a really big jump. But anyway, this is looking, decent enough here. I just hate that it's so hot and so dry already when it was had rained so much with 100-degree temps, and it's not totally filled in yet, but hopefully there's some moisture still a couple inches underground that we don't kill all this stuff. But so what we're going to do is we got a cornfield out there, and that's just, so much of it is wiped out, and so we're just going to mow out the part that's eaten out until I start getting to some cobs. Like, okay, this is where the browse line kind of ends, and we're going to mow all that out, and then I'm going to disc it up or rototill that all up, and then put Amazing Grains right from here on out to that corn piece. So what we'd like to do is, right in front of that blind, kind of, even though we planted the Pro Brassicas out here, we'll probably take that line maybe about right at the blind. This way it's kind of a little bare spot there, and then cut it over like that, and just do a big wheat field there because, you know, brassicas are awesome. And there's a time in November where they walk through everything to eat turnips and rape and radishes and things like that. Even though they'll still browse around in here early, what they really want right away in October is that winter wheat, you know, forage oats, forage rye, winter peas, the mix that we have in an Amazing Grains mix. Because that's the one thing that's growing. When everything else is dying, you know, in October, September, October, that's still growing, and that'll grow right up until, you know, it frosts into the middle of October, end of October, just depends on the weather. But that's really what they'll be focusing on early season. And this year, normally it would be clover as well, but clover's basically dead. That means stuff that didn't die earlier and just came back some, and now we got this other 100 degrees, and it's probably not going to be a great year for clover. So we're going to rely on our Amazing Grains, and we'll put that right in here, and pretty sure that we have a pretty good chance at Gomez in here because this is where he's lived his whole life, other than last year when he kind of moved when that other Big Ten was in here. So you know they're going to be focused on that water. Got that. We've got the water tanks that we put out earlier. We'll go fill them up now it's so hot. But next week it's supposed to be back in the 80s. So we just have 1 week here of 100-degree temperatures, and hopefully it doesn't kill all this stuff. And again, if it did, you're still not out of the game. You still have your last chance with the Amazing Grains. But I think this is up far enough now that it should be safe from that. So what we'll do is we'll take the mower here, and I'm going to go and mow off this edge and mow out to the corn to where it's still standing, where there's still some ears in it, and we'll do a big Amazing Grains plot in here, and you'll be seeing that on the next episode. But right now, take a look at Gomez and let me know what you think.